Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management, be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. I'm Ian Stone.
And I'm Neil Munro. So today we're going to talk about a bit of a case study, review over how we've helped an individual client. We're going to sort of not mention the actual client name just for confidentiality reasons, but we thought it's a good case study to sort of give you information on what's possible when it comes to helping clients manage their asbestos risk.
I'll set the scene. There was a massive refurbishment project being undertaken at this site, and
multi-million pounds.
Yeah, it was. It was like a few £100 million overall.
Yeah, and it was essentially sort of included demolishing most of the site, however, retaining the actual structure in one section of this building.
Yeah, there were kind of iconic pieces, iconic sections that needed to be kept for historical purposes.
Listed. Definitely the facade is definitely listed.
Yeah, as part of the project, over the years, a certain amount of asbestos knowledge and information had been gathered. And I mean, when we first went in,
different surveys as well, wasn't it? Lots.
Yeah, different companies, different surveys, different findings even.
Yeah, that was a big highlighting factor at the beginning, wasn't it? It's kind of like the client had multiple surveys, type 2 surveys, management surveys.
Type 1s even.
Yeah, refurb after refurb after refurb. And when we actually sat down and looked at all the information, every single report had something different in it.
Yeah, it did. It really did. And that's where we started. It was like, right, well, we've got this project coming up. All right, certain bits are going to be knocked down, certain bits are going to be retained. So that was the first port of call for us of sit down, we'll do a desktop study. So we got all the information, electronic, paper copies, everything. We kind of just laid it all out, locked ourselves in a room for a few days and just literally read everything and made notes as we went of, I don't know.
Cross-reference section.
Yeah, indiscrepancies of stuff that, I don't know, appeared weird in our own minds, stuff that didn't make sense of, I don't know. Like within reports, there was stuff that said certain things had been removed, yet the following year, that area had been surveyed and the findings was it was still there. It was all just a mishmash, really. So yeah, that's what we did originally, to kind of sit down and get our heads around it all before proceeding with anything.
Yeah.
And then only when we kind of had that information did we then kind of proceed. And the next step was to do a new refurb and demo survey in line with what the client actually wanted this time round. So we didn't discard the old information. We took that forwards. Our surveyors took it on board. They took that forwards and appreciated what the issues were at site that were known, and also the stuff where there was question marks above.
Right. Yeah.
So what we did, we completed that survey. Again, when you compared the final survey report back to the previous stuff, some of the stuff we agreed with of, yes, it had been removed and it had been removed well. Other areas, there was asbestos that should have been removed, but it hadn't been removed in its entirety, and there was still debris and residue and stuff like that there. And then there was also even additional findings that nobody had found before.
Yeah, I think if I could just interject in there, this is a real big sort of lesson learned on. Now, this is a massive client, it's a massive site, but essentially they didn't really have hold of the asbestos management. There was no key individual on that site managing the asbestos.
No, you're right. There'd been people over the years that had tickled it.
Project teams.
They'd dabbled it.
Yep.
But yeah, there was not one particular person who was
overriding, controlling the asbestos register. A person who was commissioning, like one person who's commissioning the surveys, so they had a grip on, okay, that project over there is doing something, I'm in charge of the refurb survey. Yeah. That project over there is doing it. I've got a grip on what they're doing and the surveys they're having, and then feeding back into that one place. So really, no one really had a grip on.
They weren't responsible. There wasn't a responsible person.
Yeah, and like you said, that project would have something removed. The other project didn't get that removed, but that information didn't collate and didn't come back into a central point.
No.
So the actual asbestos register could be updated.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it went wrong.
It did.
And that's where it kind of, if you don't get this thing right, you leave yourself open.
Yeah, and that's it. There was a lot of information there, which was great, but it was in a bit of a shit shape.
It was a case of, I think, they kind of knew, yeah, we've got to have an asbestos survey. We're doing something, we've got to have an asbestos survey. And that's kind of the method that they followed and thought they were compliant. Yeah, we've had a survey done.
Yeah.
And it was kind of survey after survey after survey after survey.
Which was right, but it wasn't like in line with the overall management
it
of
was
the
just,
site. There wasn't like the forethought of, it had the blinkers on of this little project, that's all I'm getting
that's
sorted
all I'm
for.
doing. Yeah, I'm
Not
okay
the
for this
overall.
project. I'm not thinking about the management.
No.
And that's kind of where that went wrong.
It did, and that's kind of when we got brought in, that was what we took charge of for that, of there were elements of the project that were happening in other areas and stuff, but it all got brought in under our kind of watch, if you like.
Yeah, and definitely these projects, they weren't thinking about management ongoing. They were just sort of blinkered in those projects. So they're paying out maybe for encapsulation or removal works within the project, but that didn't really fit with, the ongoing management of the location, the area, and the site as a whole.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
And they've probably spent thousands and thousands of pounds.
Over the years.
Unnecessarily doing surveys, unnecessarily doing remedials.
I'd go as far as to say millions over the years.
Yeah.
On stuff.
Doubling up on stuff.
Yeah.
Not getting it right. Doing it once, twice, 3, 4, 5, probably,
once, twice, 3 times a lady. Yeah, so when we completed that, we had the asbestos information. We knew exactly where the client was at. We knew what issues they were going to face with what the plans were and all the rest of it. So sat down with the project team, discussed everything and kind of forged the way forwards with regards to what needed to be done to get the project completed, but also with the forethought in mind of what the site's going to be looking like once it's all completed and how the management on that site is going to work afterwards. So we helped the client with the specification for the removal and the repair of the asbestos that was needed. And that was very, very key because, again, they were looking at it from the point of, right, X equals Y. And it's like, well, yes, it does on the basic level, but without the kind of the bigger forethought of, well, if I do this, yeah, that makes it safe or whatever. But then it's like, well, that's your part of the project. And then you go to the next person in the project and they sit there and go, yeah, you've made it safe, but now I need to drill through that. Or that's where my cable route was going.
Yeah.
Or. And it was like just having us all in that room, just discussing the project as one rather than each individual one. That was really good from, well, our point of view and the clients because that helped us sort out the correct specification.
Yeah, that emphasises my point again of you do need somebody who's taken charge of the asbestos because you need that person fighting the corner for the best management of the building. Because most importantly, when you've got multiple project teams within a site in an organisation, the project managers, all they're worried about is their project. And you need that individual who's, holding the flag for, no, that's not right for the management of the building. We need to do X, Y and Z.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So once the spec was kind of all bottomed out, we helped the client tender out to a load of contractors. I mean, this was massive. This was a few million quid's worth of asbestos removal. We were on site for 2.5 years, I think, in the end. So it wasn't kind of a small project by any shakes. And for that, so once it was tendered, the contractor kind of proved themselves, put the right package together, the right kind of programme. We discussed the project with them, essentially interviewed them with the client to make sure that they understood what we understood and that the outcome of what they were thinking was going to be the same outcome as what us and the client had set our goal out to be.
And that is the biggest point to highlight, isn't it? It's when you go out to contractors and ask them for quotes for asbestos removal, generally speaking, they will give you the price that they want to give and the project and the removal works that they want to give and they think is best for not necessarily you, but more to them, how they can get the job properly done.
And then winning the work.
And then winning the work. Whereas where you start at the front end is we always go into, and the way that we project manage asbestos removal works is with the client's end result at the forefront.
What's the end game? What's the end result look like? What does that actually mean at the end?
And then work back from there.
Yeah.
Rather than going, I need that removing, and then we'll make it fit to the management, which is the wrong way.
Definitely. So yeah, we started on site. Like I say, we were on site for 2.5 years or so. And again, just from other projects in the past, we've learned lessons. And again, we put all of it into kind of we put a dedicated team in place for it. So there was a dedicated contracts manager, dealing with the client and making sure the site guys were kind of on point. There were senior staff on site leading the project, again, who were doing the same, making sure everything was all good. And then we kept consistency with the analysts and the project managers that were on that project. I mean, 2.5 years of being on site, sometimes 24/7, is difficult to do.
Time. It is.
And you can't put somebody to work 24/7. And we would never want to, because people get burnt out and people kind of fall out of favour with the industry and the job, especially on big projects.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not a fan of...
We talked about this the other day.
I'm really not a fan of 24/7 work in any industry, but particularly with asbestos. And it is led by contractors. Contractors will go, yeah, we'll do whatever. And we find ourselves pushing back a little bit, because I've done so many 12-hour shifts, 24-hour working, and you don't get the quality work for 24/7.
It's not cost effective.
No.
Like on paper, it looks cost effective because you're getting 2 12-hour shifts a day, literally around the clock working, and therefore the project gets brought in quicker.
Yeah.
However, in reality, that's bollocks.
The night shifts do half the work the day shifts do.
Yep.
And then you get the battle between the two.
Even like the day shift, like it's a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
You get 8 hours work for 12 in the day, and then for the night time, you probably get 6 hours work for your 12 hours.
It burns the guys out as well.
Not only the analyst and the project manager, also the supervisors and the operatives, especially on large, big projects, because people get kind of snowblind with it. I mean, large-scale removal is one thing, but kind of when you're talking about like environmental cleans, when you're picking up minor dust and debris in huge areas, huge spaces, it can be kind of a little bit soul-destroying.
Yeah.
Because you're not removing anything as such. It's not like, right, there's a ceiling, now the ceiling's gone. Or there's a wall, now the wall's gone. It's like the whole clean through. Yes, it looks better than when you started, but there's no kind of, I don't know, real big line in the sand of what you've completed.
Yeah, and that's when you start getting the fallings out between the day shifts and the night shifts. It's like, you know, the next shift comes in and going, oh, what have we done today?
Ain't done bugger all.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's really counterproductive. If anything, if you needed to do something, you know, if you did 2 shifts, you know, just normal hours at the most, but generally speaking, if you just do a project 1 shift a day, it always works better.
It does. And also with that, it's like you then get the consistency.
Yeah, so, same people are coming in day in, day out. There's no double shifts. You're responsible for that area and you get it done.
Yeah, the same people are in charge. Same people carry that responsibility, that weight. There's no kind of shirking of saying, well, oh, they didn't do that bit or whatever. It's like, well, it's your project. It's you. 5 days a week. Everybody gets a break at the weekends. And do you know what? That's a big thing with the asbestos industry. I get it. Clients do need stuff sometimes out of hours, 7 days a week, all the rest of it. However, if projects are properly planned, I mean, take the construction industry as a whole.
Yeah.
They work Monday to Friday, and that's it. Generally speaking, that's what happens with refurbishments, buildings.
Yeah, you build a new house, they don't work the weekends, unless they're running behind sometimes or whatever. But as a rule,
they still get a break in the week. It's not like 7 days, and that does go on in the asbestos industry. I've known projects to happen where it's had the analyst on site for like 60 days straight without a break. The supervisor on the site, 60 days straight without a break. It's like, that's madness. Nobody can work like that.
It's ridiculous. And you can say, well, you can mix it up or anything, but then if you start mixing it up with different people, you then lose the consistency.
Yeah.
So for instance, you know, if you've got a big long clearance or you're on a project, the contractor will come to the analyst and they'll ask them questions of, oh, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? The analyst will give you an answer. You take that analyst off and you get a new one, they might have a different opinion. And that's when you get conflict. He said, she said.
Mum and dad off against each other.
Yeah, exactly. And you just lose that consistency. So, yeah, it just works so much better. Normal shifts, normal hours.
When you've got a dedicated team.
Dedicated people on there, having breaks, having regular breaks, it just works so much better.
It does.
When you double up, you don't get double.
No, you don't. So, projects were completed. There was all sorts of kind of issues and things along the way, as you'd expect on something that's like a few million quid. It's not going to be an easy ride. But we all worked together. And again, that was key of the client was on board with us from the beginning. The contractor was on board with us from the beginning. And we all worked as a team. There was nobody kind of pushing for a hidden agenda or for extras or anything like that. It's like, right, look, we all understand where we're at. this is the end goal, this is what we're going to do.
Yep. How can we work together to make sure that this project works smoothly?
So after we did that, everything was all in place, everything was all good. And then essentially the building was handed back before it was the point of being recommissioned.
Just want to talk through what sort of materials were worked on this project.
Everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
What was it predominantly?
There was
insulation.
There was insulation residue. There was insulation to pipes. There was
spray coating as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, spray coating. Again, spray coating sections, spray coating residue, spray coating on the ceiling, spray coating on the walls, spray coating on the floor.
You know, this was, if you're talking about asbestos removal, it don't get much more complicated than spray.
It was probably the largest, most complicated project that's happened, I don't know, in the asbestos industry for the last 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
It was huge and it was very complex.
And from an analytical point of view, really, you do have to be on the ball with your air monitoring as well, because a breach in an enclosure, when you're removing and dealing with spray coatings, you're going to get a high fibre count and possibly exceeding the control limit.
Exactly.
In those areas. So you really do need to be experienced and on the ball with that air monitoring strategies.
Yeah, spray coating, it's next level. It's the top end of asbestos.
Yeah, it's like 80%, roughly 80% asbestos content mixed with a Portland cement binder. But it's don't be confused by the cement binder. It was just literally to stick the material together. So it is highly friable.
So the second you touch it, millions of fibres are released.
Yeah, how would you describe it? Not cotton wool.
No, that's what I was going to say.
It's a spiky cotton wool.
Like, imagine if you get a load of fiberglass and stick it on a ceiling.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest.
With a kind of a wet look to it.
Yeah.
It's not wet, it's dry, and, you know, it's easily damaged.
Easily damaged, releases loads of fibre.
Yeah, easily release asbestos fibre for minimal disturbance.
So, yeah, well, like I say, once all that was sorted and the building was kind of at the point of being recommissioned, we then worked with the client on a management plan for anything that was remaining on site. And again, we sat down with the client, all the different departments, because they did a lot of different stuff at site, and discussed each and every person's individual requirements to make sure that the management plan fitted all of them.
And works for everyone.
Yeah, because there's no point in having a management plan in place if it's not working.
No, defeats the object completely.
One of the biggest things that we kind of faced was like the contract control, external people coming to site and making sure that the information was disseminated to them properly in an orderly manner and each and every time, because there were different kind of routes and avenues that other contractors would come to work on that site because there were so many different departments, different areas.
Yeah, and the key thing was naming those responsible individuals, putting them into the management plan and making other people aware of who they were, who was responsible for the asbestos management at the site, and ultimately who the duty holder was.
Yeah.
And it's having that cascading information that disseminates out to all parties, all departments throughout the business. So that was really sort of a good thing for them moving forward, and having that responsible hierarchy that control it and has got a steer on how they're going to manage asbestos within that property on an ongoing basis.
And that literally hits the nail on the head from how, when we went into the project, how kind of sparse and kind of disjointed it was to how it is now. There are named people. There are processes in place that they have to follow of, we're knocking this wall out. Right, well, they have to submit a works order through a certain department that then sign off on it and make sure that the asbestos survey is undertaken by their retained consultant, which is us. And rather than every Tom, Dick and Harry going off and getting who they wanted, which that's what happened before. So now the site, there's still a hell of a lot of asbestos on that site. The difference is, though, it's being managed in a nice... Yeah, they have got grip of it. It's being managed in a nice, straightforward manner. Works happen, they'll contact us, we'll go and help them. Annually, we'll do the re-inspection at the areas that we need to. And yeah, it's just managed a hell of a lot better. It's like, it's not a stress anymore.
Yeah.
I think looking back, it was always disjointed, bit of a mess, bit of a stress. Whereas now, they've really taken on board what asbestos management means and how to manage it, which it's just part of the process now. Whereas before, it was always an afterthought. But now they're
you've got to do something.
They're in line with our mantra, asbestos first, not last.
Yeah, exactly that.
And it's made their lives so much easier. Costs have been kept down because there's no lastminute.com, there's no breakages of asbestos that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, no doubling up on stuff, no getting surveys for the sake of getting a survey done because that's what you've got to do because you've already got the information.
So yeah, that was it. I mean, I'm just going to run through the lessons learned just as a quick rundown, really. So for me, the early engagement between us and the client was great because it gave us the full information. We then carried that through to the specification stage, and then getting the contractor on board right at that early stage was great. So the desktop kind of started that off. And then when we moved into the works, the key account team, again, that just ensured continuity because everybody knew what they were at every day. There was no kind of, like Neil said earlier, he said, she said kind of thing going on.
Over, changes are, that is always a real pain on the site.
Whenever you've got issues with people,
yes,
that's the biggie. It's human interaction with anything cocks it up. So by having those same people made it run smoother.
Definitely.
Like I said, the full partnership working, literally taking it on as a full partnership between us, the client and the contractor, just getting any side issues out of the way, getting everybody on the same page. That was massively important because the site was so complex and we really did need everybody on board. And it started with the client. The site was really complex. They had, like I say, lots of old information and I don't know, there was stuff on site where it was just random places they didn't have plans for. However, that knowledge was still within the client because they'd worked there for so long.
Yeah. Just to add to that, it was really good to get the team together, as in the removal contractors, us as the consultancy and the client, because sometimes if you have conversations without the three parties, the contractor liaised with us to understand what we would expect and what we would want to see for the 4-stage clearances, the standards that would be required at the initial stage, before even starting the works.
Rather than getting to the clearance is ready, do you want to come in and have a look, mate? It was like, no. Everybody knew where they were at before we even started the race.
Exactly that. We're working to the same agreed goal.
Yeah.
And that really does make a big, big difference.
It does. And then, like I say, finally, the kind of final thing of sitting down with everybody who was going back into the building and how they were going to move forwards in that building. Again, kind of the liaison and agreeing with all the parties how it's going to work and working together to get the asbestos management sorted. So, that was a really, really... Well, it's an amazing, amazing project to be part of. I'm really proud of what we did there and what we achieved.
It was a good one.
It was huge and it was all good. And
that's the most important.
It was interesting as well.
I think it's the problem solving. It's the end. Yeah, okay, we did a good job on site, but what's more important is really now the client is left with a hassle-free asbestos management, and that's the more for it. It's not a headache.
They haven't got a headache, no.
We've removed that asbestos headache for that client, which is, that's the big thing for us. So, I hope you found that useful. Don't forget, if you've got any questions that you want to cover on the Asbestos Knowledge Empire, please contact us in the Facebook community. Come and join there. Get access to myself and Ian.
If you've got questions about a certain project you've got coming up or an issue or anything, again,
just
bang
pick
it
our
in
brains.
there.
Yeah, if we want to pick our brains, what do you think to this? I'm thinking this. Is it a good way to go or not?
We're not going to charge you for it. We'll have a chat. That's what we're here for. We want to share the information and the knowledge so that asbestos management isn't a headache and people aren't exposed.
And if you do like this podcast, we'd really appreciate a bit of a rating. Hit the subscribe button. 5-star rating would be excellent. We'd really appreciate that. So that's it from us. Remember, asbestos first, not last.